The topic for today's session is called Python or programming in Python. In more detailed explanation, question is why you should know it. First, because it's some of programming languages is mentioned in curriculum of this course. And second, because Python currently is the most popular programming language in index managed by TOB group. I don't remember what TOB actually means. If you are curious, you can search for yourself. But if you look here on the most popular ones, previously most popular programming languages were these different success and order, either C or Java. But starting with year 2018, Python is getting growing popularity, and you can see here at the end of it's quite strange, end of 22, I think it's beginning of 22, not end of 21. Currently Python is the most popular programming language, and because of that we can use this particular language to explain for you basic principles of programming. And what is history of Python programming language? It was started pretty long time ago in 1991. But at that time it was not very popular. It was mostly used as a teaching programming language for universities and different kind of courses. It is interpreted programming language. That means you do not convert these instructions from your source code as a binary instructions directly executed in particular hardware, but you still have another program running in your hardware which reads these instructions from this file and then executes them. But currently Python has compilers to other programming languages which you can compile as so-called native binaries or libraries, which works as a set of instructions in particular hardware. And it is dynamically typed, so that means you don't need to care so much about precise types of your variables. It gets type while you assign value to it. So sometimes it's also called duck typing. So if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, and if it quacks like a duck, then probably it is duck. And it supports all of most modern programming paradigms. It can be object-oriented, it can support functional programming. I will not go into details about this, but what is important is that Python supports it. And it also supports integration with these native libraries, which I explained. So native libraries are these who run directly as set of instructions read from hard disk or random access memory and immediately executed as instructions, as I showed you in this virtual computer on that web page. So, and when Python integrates with it, if it uses some of these native libraries, then it actually runs pretty fast. And what is philosophy of Python? So Python was developed as a well-designed and well-ordered language in difference with PHP, Perl or JavaScript. And that's strength of this programming language, because it is quite consistent, quite easy to understand. And so design philosophy for this programming language was that beautiful is better than ugly. So in some other programming language like Perl, if it's ugly but it works, then it's okay. But in Python, if it's ugly but it works, it's not okay. So they have different kind of explicit statements to describe precisely, so no implicit assumptions how this should work. Simple approach is better than complex approach, and complex is better than complicated, and readability counts. So this is also quite important because general consensus among programmers is that source code of your program is read much more than it is written. So even if you are writing code, most of the time you are reading it, not writing, because you need to test it, you need to debug it, etc. And therefore readability is one of very important things for programming language. And here readability is also, Python I think is one of the best programming languages in terms of readability. So what are different kind of good features and bad features of Python? First, most important, it is developed as open source, so all libraries and frameworks to get Python running is developed as open source program. So it is free from royalties and you can legally use it for free in any possible way. It is comparatively easily to learn and use, and it is only comparatively because you will always say that, for example, Scratch, which is graphical programming language, is easier than Python, and then there may be some other programming language which are even easier as a Scratch. But it is comparatively easy to learn and use if you compare it with other programming language where you write them as a text. It has good support for objects, modules, and other ways how you can reuse your source code as a library, or modules in this case, and objects. And it is easy to integrate with two most popular languages in older times, which are C and Java. Now these two are second and third most popular languages in this TIOBE index. What are not so good features? So even though language becomes more and more popular, it is still not so widely used as a C and Java, so there are not so big pool of experienced developers, but of course this is changing gradually during time. It does not have good support for multiprocessor support, so Python here works as a classical one Neumann architecture, one single processor doing sequentially set of instructions in your single program or application. And if you have many processors on your computer, then of course you are missing features and possibilities which all these other processors may provide to you. So there is not so developed and advanced support for commercial support, which means technical support, updates, and consultations and learning, like for C and Java projects. Because it is interpreted programming language, it is comparatively slow, so you can't use it for high performance applications. So in general, C is faster than Java, and Java is faster than Python. Java is slower than C because it runs in virtual machine, even though it is compiled language, and Python runs slower than Java because it is interpreted programming language. And what is also not so good feature, that during this history of Python development, it started with Python version 1, .x or something, Python version 2, something, and then Python version 3 and something. And between Python version 2 point something 2.7 or 2.8 to the version 3.0, they decided to clean up design of Python and to redevelop and redesign some of parts of Python programming language differently. And because of that, there are two incompatible versions of Python, Python 2 point something and Python 3 point something, which still may be used on different kind of computers, which are not compatible. Of course, if you are studying Python, you should study only Python 3, because it is more modern and more regular and less confusing and more consistent and standardized. But if you have to rely on some external libraries and some already developed applications, there still may be applications which are developed for Python version 2, which is unfortunately very incompatible with Python version 3. And what are features of Python? So because it is interpreted programming language, you don't need to compile it, you don't need to care about linking many compiled files together from, for example, if you write some project with separate many source files, then you need to compile them and link together in one large executable or whatever. You don't need to care about types of your variables, you just declare them and type is assigned automatically from your assignment, from properties of assigned value. Automatic memory management as for any interpreted language. High-level data types, object-oriented programming, integration with C programming language, object-oriented programming classes, models and exceptions, dynamic reloading of C libraries, garbage collection, and many other things like easy to extend for objects. It supports multiple inheritance in difference with Java. And you can compile it with inside quotes to so-called bytecode. And this compilation is something like how you compile Visual Basic into VBA file, which is still interpreted, but you convert it from text file into binary file, so it loads much faster and executes a little bit faster, because Python runtime do not need to translate text into sequence of operations for executions anymore, and it supports many other things. And here is list of incompatibilities between Python version 2 and Python version 3. What is important is that Python version 3 is actually quite old already. It was released in the year 2008, but because of slow adoption rate of Python programs, even though it was quite a long time ago, there still may be, as I told you, applications which are intended for Python version 2, not for Python version 3. And you see, for example, that print is quite different. In Python T you could write print and something, because print was keyword. In Python 3 you have to write print and something inside quotes, because in Python 3 print is a function, and for functions of course you open and close normal brackets. Strings are internally stored in different way. So in Python 3 it is encoded Unicode. I think it's UTF-8, but I'm not sure. And there are some other small differences. And where do you use Python? You use Python where you could use any interpreted programming language. For example, I, as a systems administrator, mostly use bash scripts as input for interpretation for these administrative and maintenance and monitoring tasks and etc. But if I would need more advanced programming, and Bash is quite quirky programming language, it has much more complicated syntax rules than Python, then in many of these cases actually Python scripts may be used for such things as well. Then you can use Python because it's interpreted and easy to manage in different kind of prototypes and rapid development. For example, if you want just to test out your algorithms and ideas and you don't care about speed so much, Python is very easy to use for such things. And then because it doesn't have so many libraries as a Java programming language, but currently this support from external libraries is still pretty good, and you can use it also to manage different kind of databases, distributed programming, internet scripting, etc. So in many cases Python is used as a integration programming language between different external systems, and when you integrate something you do this management or orchestration of these things. Actual execution probably is done for these compiled and fast programming language like C or Java or something else, but you use Python as this duct tape to integrate different parts together. And currently Python is either second or most popular programming language for big data and statistical analysis. Some years ago, first programming language for big data was Java, but currently there are many frameworks for neural networks, for statistical analysis, etc., where actually Python is used as this management and programming language for these libraries. And where you shouldn't use Python, of course you shouldn't use where speed is important, because it is interpreted programming language, memory is managed automatically, and automatic management of memory and interpreted sequence of these commands of execution will be always much slower than these native compiled applications. And how do you use Python? Because Python is programming language, so it has shell, and you can always open it just like Python. And so here is difference in Python 2. I think this is actually version Python 2. It prints hello in following way. And you exit either exit or Control D. Or because I have both versions installed on my computer, I should say explicitly either Python 2 or explicitly Python 3. And see, this is quite important difference between this and that, because here it was keyword, so next parameter could be just any string, but in Python 3, because it's function, now I have to put it inside normal brackets because it is function. So that's how you can run it in interpreted mode interactively. But if you, for example, create a script, then you add so-called shebang or signature that you want to execute these commands with this particular interpreter. For example, if that would be bash script, this signature at the beginning of the file would be this one. And of course here you can ignore it. But you may also make any of these text files executable, and then you can run it directly. So what is happening in this case is that I'm not executing this script. What is happening, I'm executing another process running this Python interpreter, and actually I can demonstrate it. What's wrong? And here you see what is problem. So if I run this file as an executable one, here I have problem, because by default, if I call Python, I got version 2, not version 3. And that means that even though syntax for this script is for version 3, it is executed by interpreter of Python 2 programming language, and I got syntax error. So what I can do, I do not execute this file directly, but I say first run Python 3 interpreter and then use this file as a parameter for it, so it will read for it and will execute it. And you see here that Python 3 interpreter is running, and so it is executing these operations commands what I got inside this file. But I can also say that actually I want to execute this script not with Python 2, which is default option for me, but Python 3. And how can I do this? I use this signature here. I say that this script should be executed with either precisely saying pass to this executable. And now when I run it directly, I see that now it is executed using Python 3, but problem here is a little bit different, because depending on different kind of operating systems and configuration of operating systems, this path where this Python 3 interpreter actually is located may be different. It may be bin/bin/python /user/bin/python 3 and many different ways. And therefore there is another command called environment, env in short, and you can say which is Python 3. And so here you can use another approach how to say it. Instead of this you can say what was which referring to this command, which has more standardized place to locate, and say first rely on this program and then ask for this env program where Python 3 is located, and then execute this interpreter of Python 3, and then of course execute this file. And so this signature part is important if you want to execute these scripts directly just by making them executable, and then you have to add, maybe implicitly if your environment is different, that this script should be actually executed by this version or that version of Python interpreter. So that's about these things. And then if you're using interactively, then you can say -c, particular command like maybe that will work, I don't know. And if, for example, I say Python 3 here, again, I got syntax error because in Python 3 this is in following way. Or I can say, not more directly, use this as an input. This is just more ceremonial way than that. So that's how you use it when it is installed. And what are general structure of Python? So general structure of Python is a bunch of text files with or without extension. And again, if you use this signature inside your file here, then with that signature you are not required to add extension here, because then everything what shell which interprets these commands needs to do is inside its body, inside its content. And now I run just test without extension, so now my command line interpreter, bash in this case, inside this terminal, knows that this executable file actually is just a text file which should be executed by interpreter declared here in this initial signature of this script. So these are either text files, and then when I execute it, it may also store this pseudo compiled file with extension PIC, puts, where text is translated into binary sequence of operations for interpretation inside this interpreter. And then you group these files into modules which you can export and then import. And inside file, of course, you have control flows, you can create objects, and blocks are made by indentation, so no groups using normal brackets or curled brackets or braces, but just by spacing between them. And everything is object similarly to Ruby, and memory is managed automatically. So I showed this already, that you can run it into interactive mode, just calling Python or Python 2 or 3, or actually you can call it probably also in such very precise way. That may in single, of course, I think, in such a way. That's if you even need to run different kind of versions, for example for version 3 and different kind of subversions here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, blah blah blah. And then you do whatever you like. And what are basic operations? You can assign values to variables, so you don't need to add type before or after name of your variable, because type is determined by initial assignment of value. And if you add number which looks like a integer type, so no decimal part for it, it is like integer, you can do many assignments at once, and you can have integers floating point numbers, you may have complex numbers, you may have strings, and similarly to other programming language like Bash, JavaScript, etc. It may be either single or double quoted. Sometimes you need to have strings with many line breaks inside it. Then Python, as other programming languages, have this delimiter of 3 quotes. This means long string. And then you can just add line breaks in between them, so you don't need to do something like next line, next line, something like this. And if you need to concatenate or add strings together, you use plus mark here. Then you have substring operations using this ranges of arrays approach. You say first character, how many characters after that, so first character starting from zeros 1, and then how many. And then it has built-in support for lists. Lists are bunch of many things together, and because everything in general is an object in the same list, you may have stored different kind of values, strings, numbers, floating point numbers, etc. And then here is, for example, loops, control flows with if. You write if condition and colon, and then if this if true, you need to add indentation. So to make blocks of code, you don't use brackets, but you indent them properly. Something like if. How can I put everything together? Okay, we can do it in script. Something like this. And for which is to go in counted elements in some sequence. For example, here you can declare sequence of some elements or list in this case, and then you can say for E in this particular range. Then similarly you can go out to loop with break or continue. Continue means skip this particular iteration. Break means break this current iteration and grab both of it, etc. So does anybody here is very confused about syntax of Python and needs more detailed description of its syntax? In your homework you will need to do very basic programming. I will show you, of course, when I will show you homework. So I put these slides just because I had them downloaded from internet to be more complete set, but in general these will not be very important. And for example, lambda forms are important for functional like programming. Then you can do different kind with list comparison, list iteration, and etc. You can do management of these elements inside lists. Tuples are ordered lists, so they have order. Lists are not sorted, but tuples are. Then dictionaries are key and value collections. Lists are not sorted at all. Tuples are sorted, but dictionaries are sorted by their key. So this is how you name particular element, and this is what value this element have. And of course, for all of them, you have a little bit different syntax, what kind of brackets you have. For example, for lists you have square brackets, comma, delimited fields. For tuples you have normal brackets, comma, delimited fields. And for dictionaries you have braces or curled brackets, comma, delimited items, where you have item, colon, value, item, colon, value. So if you are beginner for this, it may be confusing, but this is nothing special. Many other programming languages usually use similar syntax to distinguish between different kind of collections of elements. Then about conditions, then you can compare these sequences. Yes, if somebody has R as a programming language, I am not fluent neither in R nor in Python, but as a working assumption, what I have is I will not be surprised if both of them have similar syntax to distinguish between different kinds of these collections. And then you can declare new functions in Python. You use def keyword, name of function, list of passed arguments, and as usual colon before that, and then delimited body inside it. And if you want to return something for this function, you add a return statement. If you do not want to return anything, then you do not have this statement here. And then when you call them like a function. You say, and here I have mixed up some of these things. Remember, this print without brackets here is for Python 2, not Python 3. But if you will get to be a regular user, you will start to understand these small differences, and you will see. So about modules. So module is library which you can export if you create one, but in most cases you import it and use it. And what is important, particularly for Python, is that some of these libraries are actually executed as a native applications with maximum speed, where they are compiled as a binary code for execution inside particular platform of this computer. And you should know at least something about modules, because in your homework you will need to use one module to deal with input and output of your application. And similarly to Java and C, modules are searched by search paths, which you may customize if you like. And then you can compile Python from text file into binary file with this Python compiled or POC or whatever this extension is called, which are usually hidden files. They start with dot in Unix-like systems, and it depends on configuration of your Python environment. What is important is that execution of these files is almost it is executed in the same speed as your text files, but for text file, what this interpreter needs to do first is to read this text and then decide what kind of operations it actually needs to do. But if you execute these compiled Python files, then this translation from text into sequence of commands for execution or interpretation in this case, this part is already done. So because of that, this initial time when you start executing this Python program actually is happening faster, because one of these pre-execution steps is already done. And so what you need to know is some of standard modules, and in your homework you will know to import and use standard module called sys from system, which is used, for example, to handle input and output operations for your script. That means read something and write something into output. And this is one example script which allows you to show how many arguments are passed to your script. What does it mean? So we import this systems model, and then we print out all passed arguments to our command. What are passed arguments? Passed arguments are additional words after name of the command. This is how you parameterize or change behavior of your particular application depending on what additional information you pass as words to this command. And here important thing as words, because here if you see that AAA space BBB is considered one argument because it is wrapped inside double quotes. And here again, this is considered just one argument because it is wrapped in single quotes. But if they are not wrapped, then only one word is considered one parameter, because space is default delimiter between these words what you print out. And so here it prints out this as a list of these parameters. And you will need to know at least this thing for your homework. And then in large Python applications you may need to know what exactly is loaded on models, because sometimes these names of models are not unique. And if these are not unique, then of course which particular model is loaded depends on path in which sequence or order these models are actually searched in your Python environment. And then Python also supports object-oriented programming, so you can describe your business with classes representing some structured objects with some internal structure, which may have different kind of behaviors. How does it look? You say class, name of the class colon, and then space or tab delimited body inside it. And then you may put these classes in different namespaces, again, to make them more globally unique. And here is one of examples. You create class myClass. This is description of it, and its internal property is I with initial value 1, 2, 3. And then there is a behavioral method called f, which you can call on any object out of this class, and it will call return hello world. So, and if you say my class E, you get 1, 2, 3, and if you call my class F, you will get hello world. But I will not go in details about that, because I think that you may have more detailed course if you will choose to use programming in Python later. And so, in difference with Java, Java has static keyword to structures belonging to entire class and methods, and no such keyword for structures and methods belonging to particular object of this class. But in Python they decided to distinguish between this and that using this self keyword in methods here. But I will not go in details about that. Then, in difference with like Java, Python supports multiple inheritance, so that's a nice thing. Then in this module you can deal with opening, reading, writing content into files using open and write commands or read line. It also supports event-driven approach for problems, which are called exceptions. I will skip these things. And that, in short, I think is it. And here at the end, and if you'll be curious, you'll be able to review this presentation later. Here are links about Python, starting from Wikipedia, where you can download it. What kind of Python editors, or in general, if you compare Python with integrated development environments like for C and Java, Python do not have nice integrated development environments. It has only editors, so editor is something more trivial, more simpler than integrated development environment. But you may have different kind of editors. In these small tests here, I used BI as my editor, but you can use any editor what you like. At least it should support syntax highlighting, otherwise it is not fun to use. But I will show, for example, where's difference between integrated development environment and just editor in this second part, in this practical part of this lecture. And then here are some links which I think you may use if you are curious and you want to learn something more. So, in short, that's it about Python in general, and with some very short review about its syntax. Do you have any questions or comments so far? Is here anybody for whom this is something completely new? Is here anybody who is brave to answer, who already have had some practice with programming in Python? So don't freak out in this particular exercise, because we are just reviewing different kind of technologies. If you have beginner's experience, you should be able to complete this homework or this programming exercise. So, do you have any other questions or comments before we go to break? One thing, still related to theory, because you will not need it for practical homework, is important part of technology about package management for Python programs. And this package manager for Python programs is called Pipe or Pip, no idea how it's in English. In Latvian it's definitely only Pip. And what does it mean? I don't know. Probably one P is Python and another is package. But what is I do not have any idea. And why this manager is important? Because if you will be like me, and I'm Python user, not Python developer, so that means I'm not afraid to use some of applications written in Python, but I do not develop, at least till recently, mostly in Python, is that many of these applications can be installed with this pipe. And you do something like pip install, blah blah blah. And again, because of more complicated environment on my computer than on most of computers, because I have used these applications written in either Python 2 point something and Python 3 point something, you install this package manager for Debian based distributions similarly like sudo apt install pip, and you will install default Python package manager. But there is also how this pip for other packages. Python 3, pip, etc. Because I have package manager for Python 3, which is called pip3 to be more specific, and pip2, which is for Python 2, and it is located in different places. And if I refer to it just as a pip, it's actually one completely different one. And again, because of these incompatibility of versions between Python 2 and Python 3, you need to use also two different package managers, either for Python 3 packages or Python 2 packages. But when it's installed, and if you know what you are doing, then using it quite easily. You just say pip install blah blah blah, and if you will have more complicated desktop environment like me, you should always remember that sometimes if some of these guides say just use pip install blah blah blah, in your particular case it actually should be pip 2 install blah 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 or pip 3 install blah blah blah. And that's what I also have learned as a Python user. And then you can check how many different kind of packages I have installed additionally. And here also what you need to know about package management, if you will be more, if you will start using these Python applications more frequently, is that you can call this package manager in two different ways. You can call it with root permissions, and then probably you may update some of these built-in packages which maybe can come together with setup of your operating system. Of course, I think if you use Microsoft Windows, you will not have anything. So there is huge difference between sudo pip install blah blah and just pip install blah blah. Where is the difference? If you say sudo pip install, you run this package manager with root permission and it will try and put this package where every other user of your computer can reach it, and that would be in this case in /usr/lib/python2 blah 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 somewhere here. And these are probably some built-in packages when I have installed some of these applications with standard Debian based package manager like sudo apt install. Probably it also installed some of these packages. But then here you see that for some of my local applications there are some packages located in my home folder, and these were installed without sudo. And if you do not know these differences here, again, you may create quite a big mess with your package management that your applications actually doesn't work, because it's important how these applications were developed and packaged. Do they need these packages managed with pip either as a common packages for every user on your computer? Then you need root permissions and you put them somewhere in places where only root user is able to put them, or you can put them as a local package, and then of course this package will be found and used only for particular user values in this case. And similarly, if we check example pip version 3, maybe I also will see some local, here I don't see any local packages for my user. These looks are installed as widely accessible packages for every user of this computer. But also you see that most of them are located in this folder, some of them are located in other folders. So that may be important thing what I can share to you from my experience using Python. Now about this practical exercise. If you already have experience of Python as a programming language, this should be quite easy homework for you. If you already have Python environment, development environment and execution environment installed on your computer, you don't need to do this. If you do not have, then here is required that you get it either like on Debian based installation, you install Python 3 package as more modern, more consistent and better in any way. Or if you have different environment, here in this page you can download it for different operating systems as well. Microsoft Windows, 64-bit or 32-bit versions, or MacOS, or other platforms. As well. So I hope you will manage to do this by yourself. If you will not, then of course you may ask it in next session, which will be next year. And with that, when you install it, then you should be able to do something like this in command line. Open terminal, that would be command window in older Windows or Microsoft PowerShell, starting with Windows 10, 11. You should be able to write something like Python 3 to say explicitly that you will use more recent version of Python, and open this interactive interpreter window. But that of course is not fun, and you need to create some text file with Python code inside it. And for that you probably need some kind of editor. And particularly for Linux, I have tested two different editors called Eric is one, PyDev is another, and I'm not very excited about neither of them, because some time ago I mostly were programming in Java programming language, and I have used Eclipse as integrated development environment. It's not required, but I will show you where the difference is. There's also plugin for Eclipse. Eclipse in general is large Lego set where you can add different kind of Lego subsets inside it called Eclipse plugins. And in this particular Eclipse it was called PyDev for Eclipse, that plugin. So you get usually standard Eclipse, and then you go to Help, Eclipse Marketplace, and search for some additional plugin. And somebody asked what is better. For me, Eclipse is better because it's more familiar environment for me. But if you do not have enough experience with Eclipse, Eclipse is quite quirky development environment. And I think that for beginners, maybe this Visual Studio Code, and don't mix it with Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio are two different editors. You search for some of plugins, and you can see there are more than one possibilities as additional plugins you may install. So for beginners, Eclipse may be too complicated development environment, I think. And then when you have installed such plugin to work particularly for Python, Then you need to open customization or this particular development environment which I already have opened, and you can create new Python project. Let's call it Python 1. And here I need to choose what kind of project it will be. Jython is actually Python compiled to Java, I think. No idea what is IronPython. Here I need to say what particular interpreter I will have as my target, and I will just say default interpreter, or I may say explicitly like 3.10. So some settings here. And then I have created some initial structure of my folder, and I create new other PyDev model. And here is my script, and here I have wizard what kind of content I can automatically generate. And here there are 3 different ways. For example, how can you pass additional information to executed command in terminal in text mode. One is like command and then just list of parameters. Parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3, parameter 4 as positional ones. And in your homework, dealing with such ordered list of parameters by their position will be enough. But you can also say something like parameter 1 is value 1 dash parameter 2 is value 2 and dash parameter 3 is value, let's say 3. That would be another option how you can pass. And then these may be mixed up in different order. You may say actually parameter 3, value 3 in this order. That's another option how can you do these things. And then there may be, you can support automatically like dash parameter for short or dash dash parameter in ceremonial way and value and dash p and dash dash p with more explained thing will actually be the same. And then you can also say similarly dash p equals value with not space here but in such a way. So depending on what kind of convention that program actually use, this is the shortest way how to do these things, but there may be longer options as well. And for example here it shows these approaches, how can you pass these parameters, and it will add automatic code, for example to print out something about program if you add parameter dash h like for help, etc. But we don't need it. And therefore we can just open empty file here and we can go back to our example. like in this way. Oops. And then we can run it. And we don't see anything here, but if we change run configuration, for example, pass some parameters here. And where is the difference between integrated development environment and just an editor? So it still is just an editor here, but if I have integrated development environment, I have auto prompts and different kind of helps, which allows me to, if I'm not very familiar with environment, to do different kind of prompts. For example, here I can also create unit test for automated testing, etc. So integrated development environment has more features where you are more productive in general. And in this case, it creates standard project structure with references to which automatically sets up environment. For example, that in this project I will be using Python 3, but I can create another project where I'm using Python 2 for different reasons, and many other things. So different kind of helps while you are writing code, different kind of helps, for example, for debugging, you can run it in debug mode. And go step by step. So this is integrated development environment, but if you open the same file in just a text editor, then of course you can still write code, but your life is a little bit harder. If you just open it like this text editor, so you can write your code with very stupid text editor which don't have even syntax highlighting, like mousepad in my computer. You can open it with some smarter text editor like Gwim in this case, which at least understands what Python is and shows syntax highlighting, but there is no any help here what to write here and how to run it in debug mode. So if you use simple stupid text editors, only the bug you have is to print something like and then just run it. This package. First. And we can see, okay, execution went successfully till here. But if we are still using integrated development environment, so what we need to do in this homework, we need to implement simple Python application which tells zodiac sign by passing two arguments in just positional order. First number is months and second argument is number of day inside this month. And so we need to go here to requirements. And of course we will not go into details about this kind of bullshit here, but what is important here is that here in table of dates we have ranges of these dates, and what I usually see is that if somebody asks what your zodiac sign is, he or she, mostly she, wants to know approximately in what time of year you have birthday. And we can just copy it from here and paste here. Doesn't look very nice. Let's do it in better way. Oh, maybe it will work in spreadsheet as well. Results. Oh, this looks much better. So we can delete this column. We don't need that. We can delete that column. We don't need that. What are these? Strange things. Oh. And so here. We can do something like this, and then we need to replace numbers, names of months to the numbers of months. Something like, how can we do this? Okay, I will just show you proof of concept. So January should be replaced with 1. Oops, not with 1 but with 2. Maybe I did mistake already. Maybe not. So you got idea. And maybe when it's nice table we can actually put it in our editor of choice. So here this development environment is great for testing, debugging and execution. Not so great as an editor. But the idea here is to learn that when you have some requirements, you should convert requirements to actual code in the most automated possible way. And I think you got idea. So you got your requirements here, and problem here is that these dates are overlapping. For example, you are either Taurus or Gemini by their classification. If your birthday is on May 21. So in these overlapping cases, to not add ambiguity, you need to increase by 1 these overlapping dates where they overlap. Something like this. And still to the end, and of course remember about this case that if you start with third ones, not first mice, because zodiac sign starts with equinox in spring, not in winter. So here as well, this 21.3 should be actually 22.3. And then what do you do? With this you already know how to get arguments, and you could do something like this. Mount is 0 cell, I think it should work on there. Third cell, and we will comment it everything on. And if we run it, zeroth argument is name of command itself, so first and second one. Or if you don't use integrate development environment, then of course you do something like this. Where is my terminal? Also Python 3 test 1, and then let's move on and 2. What I'm editing, test 1 or test? Test. Let's remove this to get less confused about that. So in not integrated environment, you run it something like this. And then you can start do your calculation, something like if, and you say something like and here you need to have range. This means there is more than equal or, and probably this should be grouped together. Usually and prevails ors, and you don't need these brackets. And small r equals this r. And here, what do you say? It doesn't like it. One of the things here is that because Python has dynamic types, these arguments, even though I'm passing numbers here, these are strings containing numbers, or that means string in general means just stream of characters. And string containing character 1, of course, is not the same as a integer type number with value 1. And maybe that is problem which we can solve maybe with something like this. But there is difference. So these of you who are more familiar with Python programming, maybe you can say me what is wrong here. Not assignment, yeah. Even Java programmers should know this one. And of course not Python 2, but Python 3 syntax. And then here, what is good about, for example, in this integrated development environment, if I want to change my parameters, I need to go in menu, say run configurations, change these arguments to something else, like what I have implemented month 3, day 32, not 30, 22. So quite a lot of clicks. And I see this output here, but I don't see else. Okay, we can add else. Print. And why is this? Because here, even though type of parameter is added automatically, you see here difference that what I actually have, I have string containing character 3, not 3 as a number. So what can I do? I think, as far as I remember, we can cast it to integer number by saying that these should be integers, not strings containing different characters, including different kind of numbers here. And if I try to run it, now I can't concatenate them as a string, and now you see it is working. And as a proof of concepts, we can do something like else. What was else if for Python? Elif. That means else if one is next one, which is 4, and they is the same or larger than here I need to update it to 5 because they should not be overlapping, and is 5. Also 5, I think. Then it is now chorus and column here, and you can add else. I think it was required to say if something is completely wrong. I don't remember. Nothing is required, so we may. So only valid dates probably will be passed and tested. And again, here you should compare them, not assign. We can do something like this. And what is good in command line is that here changing dates to something else is much easier. I just press up arrow key and say, for example, 4 and 4th month, 5th day. And when I have done debugging, this shouldn't be printed out, only sign of zodiac should be printed out. Something like this. And then, if that would be implemented till to the end, that would be done. And this was just a test. Actually, I have to rename it to something else. What was my code? Python, I think that is actual name. 9.1 Python. But that's wrong. And what can we do about this? I can just say file, save as, not here. So it made it as a package inside package inside package. Okay, so here we will do just this crowbar method. What was actually needed here is I don't need it as a folder now. Let's copy this one. Put somewhere in buffer. So this is just the garbage, do not click on that. Let's go back to simple things. So that is what we let's say 322. So that is file what you need to upload. This one. And so you go here, submit files, choose it. I have saved it in some very long place. Something like this. I'm just reviewing. So here are nothing told about requirements. What happens if I enter like 33 here? So only if nothing is told, you don't need to care about this. You need to care only about correctly passed dates here for this exercise. Oh, and maybe here, if Python 3 will be your only Python version on your computer, then remember writing Python and Python 3 is the same. on my computer writing Python and Python 3 is not the same, but because here is requirement that Python 3 should be used, then what you can do, you can say explicitly with this shebang that it should not be user Python but using Python 3, and I think the same syntax actually can be used for Microsoft Windows and MacOS, or if you are not sure, then you can check. We can, yeah, oops, not close. What I wanted to do is, and here my integrated development environment makes warning, so it says it's not good. If we say env, it still doesn't like it. Okay, we can check it because I have not used. So if you trust Stack Overflow, then no, they allow to use this Unix-like system notation. That it means your actual path where this Python executable will be located. Of course, it will be completely different if you start something like C:\\, program files, / blah blah blah, but you can still use these ones. But when I will check your exercise, probably I will be careful and I will call it explicitly using Python 3, not Python 2. So that's about more details here. And also, because nothing is told about bad conditions, you don't need to care if no parameters are passed at all, so it just fails with error because you cannot assign value for non-existent argument passed here for this script. So you need to test that only it works as it require it only for valid ranges of dates. So I'm reviewing some chat here. Thanks for reminding me that else if in Python is elif. So about dates, I told you need to check that it works correctly for valid ranges of dates passed. And if no parameters are given or wrong values are given, your application may fail in any way you like. And do you have any more questions or comments about this exercise? My take as a no comment. Now about last exercise. Last exercise is more useful implementation of writing essay about concepts discussed and reviewed in this course. And writing essays and uploading them into file is quite inefficient and I think stupid way to do. You have to write your essay in Wikipedia. And to prove your work, you create another file with, for example, this content. Save as this code. And this link is link. It's better if you use your registered username, which I usually most of times do not use. But if you look here, some of changes I have done quite a long time ago with this name you can see. And so I will review what is done. In general, I will look, for example, what is difference like between this and that. You may also have more than things, particularly for Valdisvik here. And I will check what your contribution in Wikipedia was here. So you are allowed to do this in Latvian, Russian and English. If your native language is not English, you may do this contribution in your native language, but then please be warned, I will use Google Translate to check what your contribution actually is. So if Google Translate is not working for that, then I will not be able to rate it. Probably I will just add some fraction of entire credit for that particular work. What is not so good, but if you, like me, for some reason, do not want to show your actual contribution, you may send hyperlink using IP address instead of your username. And then URL looks like this. So you see that this is actually still me with this IP address, but so then your contribution link should look like this. But because IP addresses may be overlapping and may be changed, for example, I actually have two uplinks to the internet, and probably by checking, so this is one IP address for uplink, still the same, in some of routes I should have different IP address. Yeah, this, for example. Then this contribution link, of course, is completely different. And then, if you see that something has changed, here I'm sharing IP address with somebody else. I don't remember that I would have changed something for Jāzeps Vītols. So here, if your IP address contribution will look suspicious, I will not trust and I will not believe you that this is your actual contribution, and again I may consider to add some fraction for this completed exercise, but you will not get full credit. And what is full credit? That I can unambiguously understand that that was your contribution, and that proof of work is approximately with the same amount of work and complexity as for other exercises. So what is needed is that you can prove that you have spent many minutes, maybe few hours on editing, on some of these concepts discussed in this particular course. You should have only one hyperlink here in this file, either that or that. So you upload it, and that's about documenting your essay writing work. Any questions, comments about this last work? Length of essay, it depends on how complicated it is, etc. But for example, if you convert it and print it into sheet of paper, one sheet of A4 paper with text with normal size and resolution would be okay. If you do more, it's great. If you will do less, I will need to think a little bit about that. Then, if you will do less, then it will be depending on overall status of contributions from other students. If majority of you will be quite lazy, I will just accept situation and I will lower my expectations. But if your contribution will be much less than contribution for some of your classmates, then of course for this classmate I will give full credit for this homework, and for you, you will get a little bit less. So it depends on how your particular contribution will be in comparison with contribution from your classmates. Yes, and language can be any. No, any questions about Latvian, Russian and English? And about these who may speaking, talking, reading, writing some other languages, you should check, for example, how this Wikipedia page looks like when it is translated into English using Google Translate. So if Google Translate understands this language more or less correctly, so that I can actually understand what is talked about and what your contribution is, then you, of course, you can contribute in language of your preference. Because problem with particularly English is that there is so much of information in Wikipedia in English language that to contribute something is much harder. You need to be much bigger specialist. You need to be much deeper in some particular area to contribute something useful. But contribution to other less frequently used languages is easier. So, about next lecture. In next lecture, I will show you my last presentation, which is also required, called Future Trends about technologies. And that will be part given from me, but also we may discuss status of your homeworks, because if you want to get full credit for your homeworks, you should have been submitted all your work still to this time, and then I can do some review, explain my decisions, how I assigned these ratings for these homeworks and other issues. So I think that in this next day when we will meet in January 7th, we will have two things. One of these administrative related things, probably review of status of your homework with some explanations how and why I decided to assign some rate for you, and also this final presentation about future trends in how these technologies were called. Knowledge Society technologies. So that's about this. Any other questions or comments?